I would say the biggest misconception of the job is hi everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So I thought I'd start off with a question and answer video. I've done these before on my Instagram and Facebook stories, but I thought now I'm on YouTube, why not put them all in one place so you guys can just see the sort of questions I got and hopefully tell you a few things about the railway that you didn't know. So the best part of being a driver for me is the fact that my office moves and that I get to travel as part of my working day. I love starting in London at 5:30 in the morning, and then in a couple of hours I'm in Sheffield and I get to go for a walk around the city at 7:30 in the morning and have a coffee somewhere else. Um, Always love seeing kids and enthusiasts out and about on the platform and giving a wave or a little toot. And I just love driving itself as well. I've always loved just driving a car and getting in my train, driving a train. I love speed as well. So intercity definitely suits me traveling at 125. So, to get into train driving, you need to apply to your nearest train operating company or freight operating company. They normally like you to live within 45 to 60 minutes of the depot, and that's on and off public transport. And you just need to be able to pass the tests. Qualification wise, English and maths is ideal, but with the new apprenticeships now, they kind of build it's kind of built in that you do some English and maths as well. Entry roles into the railway could be gate line or train dispatcher, like how I started out in the railway. There's also roles as onboard hosts, first class hosts, and you could also come into the railway as a guard or train manager as long as they are trainee positions, and the same for getting into the driving grade, whether that's a shunter or depot driver or mainline driver. As long as they're trainee positions, you can get into the railway that way as well. So, the typical shifts for a train driver, we work all round the clock. Where I am, we do earlys, middles, lates, and nights. The earliest shift books on at 4:54, and the latest shift books off about half midnight. But where we also do nights, we have shifts that book on between 2100 and 2300, and they're not done till 5:30 to about 7 in the morning, depending on which night shift you're on. Not everywhere does night shifts, but then you tend to find those depots have really early book on times and really late book off times. So where I was before, there was a book on time of 3:45 in the morning, and I think the latest book off time, if I remember, was about 1:45 in the morning. So there wasn't actually much time between the service stopping and the service starting for the next working day. So where we know to stop the train is down to our route knowledge. It doesn't really matter if it's day or night. It's the same concept. When we learn how to drive a train and we're learning our route knowledge, we do have to do X amount of hours in the dark just so that we can demonstrate we can drive and that we know where we are in hours of darkness. But yeah, generally it's the same, and route knowledge comes with repetition. So I wouldn't be able to do a job elsewhere outside of what I'm doing now. The way it works with train drivers is that we're given a roster. Well, where I am, we're given a roster 6 months in advance. Some places are different. Some get 13 weeks in advance, some get a year in advance. But however long we get given, it's worked out the hours that we're allowed to work. So it's very strict on how many hours we can work in a week, in a day, how many hours we can have in the chair, and we also have to have sufficient rest between each shift. So because that's all worked out where I am, there isn't really room to have a job elsewhere driving trains as well as the one I've got now, because it would just go over my fatigue index limits, and it would mean I'm potentially unsafe to drive a train due to working too many hours in a week. So although I would love to go off and play locos and have some variety or a bit more variety, it just wouldn't happen whilst I'm in the job I'm in now. In terms of getting round that, if I was to just go and do driver experiences at Heritage Railways or even volunteer and do the odd driving shift every now and again, then that's possible. But to actually be employed and have a paid position elsewhere, it wouldn't work out. So me personally, yes, I do have other qualifications apart from my railway ones. I went to college and got my A levels, and then I went to university and I have a degree in computer science. Although I graduated over 10 years ago and I never went into the field. So if you ask me anything about computers now or programming, I probably wouldn't have the foggiest. As we know, technology is constantly moving, and when I graduated, iPads had not long come out. So that's the level of technology we're talking about here. But yeah, as soon as I left uni, I had my little part-time job at Marks and Spencers, and I was just looking around for railway opportunities, and I applied for a few jobs on the underground but didn't get in. And then I tried for a couple of dispatch positions with GA, and then I eventually got my break with a dispatch position with C2C in 2014. And I've been on the railway ever since and never looked back. So the hardest part for me on becoming a driver, I believe, is the initial application process, just because you need to get your foot in the door first. And thousands of people apply for sometimes two or three openings at a depot. So it's getting your CV right and making it stand out. And then you've got, in most cases, 3 rounds of testing. So you've got your online testing, you've got your stage 1 OPC, and then your stage 2 OPC. You've got 2 interviews, and then you've got your medical. So there's so many hoops to jump through before you get anywhere near the classroom. And then once you're in the classroom, you've got weeks of theory before you go anywhere near a train. So I think some people underestimate the process it takes to just getting into the training school and learning how to become a driver. Um, but don't let that put you off. I didn't get through my tests first time. I went again and again until I'd exhausted all avenues, and I eventually got there. I always knew I was capable of doing the job, but it was my self belief and confidence in myself that held me back every single time. Um, that's now come with time. I'm 4 years into mainline driving. I'm 10 years into the driving grade, and it's just the best job ever. So if you want it, go for it and just keep going until you get there. It will be worth it in the end. Yes, that was how I started out on the railway. I absolutely love that job. I had a really good team around me, and I learned so much and gained so much experience from being on the platform and just seeing the ops side from that role before going into driving and seeing that side. Um, in terms of advice day to day as a dispatcher, I would say check and recheck the signal before starting the dispatch process. Um, but when the opportunity for driver comes up, just go for it. You'll be grateful for the knowledge that you gained from the role that you're in now, and just enjoy it. It's such a fantastic role. I would say the biggest misconception of the job is definitely the fact that a lot of people say we get paid a lot of money to just push buttons, and that the train drives itself. It does get a little frustrating hearing that at times. We go through a lot of training. Like I said earlier in the video, we jump through a lot of hoops to get the job. And it's one of the hardest jobs to get and one of the easiest jobs to lose if you don't do it right. We have to know a lot of rules of the railway, know a lot about different scenarios if things go wrong, different types of working. We have to know a lot about the trains that we drive. So if something was to go wrong, or if we were to break down in the middle of nowhere, we know how to get that train moving again. We don't necessarily have to be mechanics, but we do have to know the location of a lot of things on the train, so that if we're guided on the phone how to get moving again, we know which coach we've got to go to, what side of the train we've got to go to, which panel we've got to open, to then carry out whatever we need to do to get the train moving again. And then it's driving itself. We concentrate for hours and hours at a time, and there is a huge mental load that comes with train driving. And I think that's the part of the job that a lot of people don't see. But I wouldn't change it for the world. I absolutely love what I do, and I'm grateful that I get to do something I love every day.